Welcome to Liz McMullen Show. I have a writing duo here, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about how you got to know each other and how that translated into working together.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth Parmer, and I am a practicing litigation attorney in Fort Worth, Texas. And I had written a couple of novels and a pretty successful blog over the past 10 years. And I got to know Caren through her wife, who's one of my best friends. And I became aware that she'd written 3 or 4 novels under a pen name. Three novels under the name Kimberly LaFontaine. And she read my novel, which was a legal thriller, and she was the one that actually suggested that we started writing together. So that's how we got started originally, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Did you talk to any people who were also writing together before you embarked, or you just did your own thing?
No, I had actually tried to write with a couple different people before we wrote together. And in my experience, sometimes as a writer you have these power struggles and the egos get in the way. When you can't agree on some basic structure in the story and voice and character traits, it just gets super complicated. And I'm not a big fan of confrontation, especially in something that's supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of put that on the back burner for quite a while. And I was like, you know what? I'm never going to write with anybody ever again. I'm just going to keep it to myself. I know what I'm doing, and it's going to be totally fine. And then I read Betsy's stuff. And it was, I know it was a legal thriller, and there were some suspense elements that were awesome, but what got me was the humor. And I knew that was exactly the piece that I was missing in my own work, and I could imagine the way it would mesh. And so I did. I said, you know what? I might give this one more try, and then I'm just gonna, if it doesn't work, then I'm never gonna try again. And I think we were both really nervous about writing the first time together. Remember that night you came over after work and we got the laptop out and we had a glass of wine.
We tend to address our nerves with alcohol.
Yeah, we do.
Ongoing theme.
And it was a little bit nerve-wracking for the first 2 or 3 minutes. So we had talked about plot structure and everything. And then we started writing and it just flowed. We knocked out a whole chapter and it was easy.
The first chapter of the book was very easy, which is very rare, I think.
I know. I really didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was very pleasantly surprised.
But, I actually have a co-author myself. Sheila Powell's a psychic medium, and she and I write paranormal together. And on paper, you can't get much more different. I'm a Yankee. I'm rude. I'm blunt. I'm not a people pleaser. And she's so Southern. She's very, very Southern. But interestingly enough, we think very much alike. Our humor is very similar. We have chemistry, and there's no ego involved because we're co-pilots, but it's almost like we're twins in a last life. Mm-hmm. And so it's incredibly comfortable. We brainstorm. I write 2 chapters. The next day, I read them out loud, and she's my little psychic editor because apparently sometimes I will read something that's not there, and she's like, it's better the way you just said it. Go back and put that word in, and then we brainstorm and, rinse, wash, repeat. But when she told me that she had a vision that she and I would write together and we'd write a series, this was in Portland, and I looked at her like she had 3 heads because I'm a control freak,
right.
And
That's me.
Right, yeah. I'm a planner. I am not a pantser, and she is a hippie, so she's like the opposite. I joke that with my spouse, eHarmony would never put us together, and if somebody was trying to put 2 writing partners together, they would not have put Sheila and I together, but it's a blast. We laugh all the time. It's just such a pleasure.
That's what we do. Caren and I were kind of baptized by fire because we decided, very early on when Caren said, what do you want to write about? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I've never written in this genre before, and she's like, it's going to be fine, don't worry about it. I was like, yeah, I'll write it right up to, what I know, and then you can take it. But she wasn't having that. She insisted that I write everything.
Nope.
But we literally got into a car and drove to New Orleans together. That was the longest period of time we've ever spent together.
Yeah.
In that car ride before that time.
I know, alone, like not at a party with other people, not with Sarah, my wife, or James.
Yeah.
Or
And I had no idea. I was very nervous. I don't know if you were getting in the car, but the natural conversation, just 2 hours into the drive to New Orleans, I was just making mental notes. I mean, we were just telling stories about our lives. And I was like, oh, that's going in the book. That's going in the book. That's going in the book. You know, and we just had a sort of a natural discourse from the beginning that was unusual for me because I am a control freak. Like I have to control everything.
Well, so am I know. And you put the two of us in a room, and that's why I was so nervous to write because it's like I don't want to control everything. Or just hijack it, and I didn't want to offend, you know.
Right. Yeah. No,
How do you organize yourselves? Like, how do you go from idea? Do you have? Are you a planner, outliner, organizer? I know with Sheila and I'm a very circuitous speaker, and the way that I interview people tends to be very, as you know, my happy upbringing, it's very comfortable. But when I'm writing, I am very, very organized. So we'll have our brainstorming session. Then I will sit down. I'll write down the plot arc, the characters, what's going to happen next. I plan the next 1 to 4 chapters, and then we start again. And it works because we really think alike, and it's very pleasurable.
Well, one of the things that we extracted from the natural practice of writing was when we decided what we were going to write, Caren said, what do you want to write about? And I said, well, let's just do what they do in Hollywood. Let's steal a literary classic, just steal the plot of a literary classic, contemporize it, and make it lesbian fiction. And she was like, let's do it. So we decided very quickly on Jane Eyre. So we had the benefit.
We love Charlotte Brontë and any of the Brontë sisters, and we're literary nerds. I mean, we love the classics anyway. Yeah, okay.
One of us is
right.
What's your educational background?
I did my undergrad at Yale University and my law degree at University of Texas, Austin.
Yeah, I have 2 undergraduate degrees. I have one in print journalism and I have one in business administration.
But once we had that plot line, we knew our plot, even though it was going to be contemporized, and there'd have to be some allowances made for the contemporization. Also, there's like the fundamental element of misogyny in all sort of Victorian literature that people would probably believe would not translate into lesbian fiction, but when you extract all that and just make it a love story, I think it came across well. But we have subsequently found, since we've got 2 books following this one as a trilogy, that we verbally plot, which I think is unusual. Like we verbally plot the narrative, and then lay the plot down. But we do better, I think, talking.
Yeah, we do. We don't necessarily write it all down. Like I know a lot of writers like to create. They like to write down the synopsis or a structured chapter by chapter, and we don't do that at all. We know exactly how we're going to get from point A to point B. What changes, sometimes, the writing takes over every once in a while. What changes for us is we know how to get there, and we know what we want to do with that, but stuff happens, or we meet people when we're doing research or whatever the case is, and we like it so much that we decide, okay, how can we fit that in? Let's sprinkle this in here and that in there.
Right, and I tend to be like drive the narrative, like drive the plot. Like if I'm not, like if she's not moving on the plot, I'm like, stop talking about the murky grayness of the so-and-so. So I'm constantly driving narrative, but Caren,
and then I pull it back, and I'm like, all right, this is a little rushed.
They may want to know what this person looks like. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I don't know if she looks like in my head.
So what is your personality in your day job as opposed to your personality as writers?
Oh, I like that one. Okay, so at work, I'm very structured and organized, and I tend to be a stickler by the rules. I do not like to go too far outside of the lines that are drawn. It's very corporate America. And so I try to do my best to be the brand ambassador and uphold all the standards. When I'm writing, I'm a lot looser. Like, I'll pull you back and I'll say, okay, we need to put some narrative in here and this, that, and the other, but I'm pretty flexible in terms of, oh, you know what? That's an awesome little twist. I like it. Let's run with that. That's totally cool.
I don't know that I'm any different in my writing personality than I am my work personality. I'm a trial lawyer, so I spend a lot of my time talking to people. That's what I do. I stand up in front of people and I talk. So when I write narrative, I tend to do it exactly like that. I mean, it tends to be very active voice, you know. Right. And I'm kind of a domineering maniac. I mean, there's another word for it. I mean, that's just sort of who I am. But with Caren, she'll let me drive the narrative 14 pages, and then she'll go, okay, give it to me. And then she'll take that, which I'm sure is complete and total poopy.
No, it's not.
And turn it into something beautiful, you know? So I'd love to have her in court with me one day, because I could stand up and be like, this is how it is. And then Caren would be like, it's a little more like
You're
this.
the technicality. And that's great, because we balance each other out so well. You know, in my previous works, because I used to write novels under a pen name, and in my previous works, I had a tendency to go real dark and real descriptive and narrative driven rather than dialogue driven or plot driven. And you're like the opposite of that. So when you put it together, it works really well.
I think that's because when
you can drag me along.
Yeah, when you talk to a jury,
back in.
If you're not so hyper animated, like that, you're like puppets and rainbows and juggling unicorns. They're out, you know.
Yeah.
So I think my dialogue tends to be more animated than necessary, just because that's what I do.
Right.
So I know it's a nice balance. I never thought I'd be able to write with anybody. That's been great.
I know.
So one of the challenges of writing with someone is maintaining a consistent voice. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, like, I'm the point of view police in the relationship. So I'm like, I know you want to be in all these people's heads, and one of the challenges is because you're two people and you relate to your characters in different ways. There can be a temptation to head hop, and also, you know, blending styles of writing is difficult. Sheila writes creative nonfiction, humor, and kind of stuff, and I'm a novelist. So that's why I do the writing, because she's very condensed, you know, and I'm a novelist, and so we're of one mind. We all do it together, but because it's just me writing, we don't have. Nobody could go through the book and go, oh, Sheila wrote that one, or Liz wrote that one.
Right. We do that with people. I think there's a fundamental perception, because I'm straight and Caren's gay, that people will be able to read it. Our friends especially, like Sarah, you know, or James, and they think they can read it and tell us who wrote what. But even my daughter, who's 15, who read the book and loves it, couldn't tell what I wrote and what Caren wrote.
Right.
She would say, oh, you wrote this. I'd go, nope, Caren wrote that.
Yeah, nice try.
It's amazing. I never thought I'd have somebody whose voice was so similar to my own in writing, that we're actually talking about taking my previous novel and taking that character and reworking it for lesbian fiction and rewriting it together.
Yeah,
because our voice is so similar, I think nobody would be able to tell the difference.
So talk a little bit about what you two have published together, maybe with a little synopsis to give a snapshot, because you talked about genre, but you haven't been specific about what you have in print.
This is the only thing we've ever published together.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, this is our first foray. This is my first foray into writing with anyone. Ever.
Yeah, same here.
I have a previous novel.
Successfully.
Right. Called Wrongful Termination, which is a literary thriller. I'm a lawyer, so a legal thriller. So that I published about 9 years ago. That didn't do great, but I like it. Caren liked it apparently.
It was hilarious.
And then I also have written a play that was produced when I was at Yale. That was called Jimmy Tango on the Chitlin Circuit, which I've never told you about. It's quite a good play. I'll have you know.
I don't see that play.
But mostly what I'm known for writing-wise is I had a blog called Chunky Girl Triathlete when I did my Ironman, and which ultimately had like 50,000 readers. It was the most incredibly phenomenal thing that's ever happened to me to have something like that take off. And it really wasn't, it was supposed to be a training mechanism to help me be accountable, but it turned into more of my philosophy on life, sort of interwoven with Ironman training.
Right.
So, but that was incredibly rewarding. I would go to races and women would come up to me and go, oh my God, you're Young Girl Triathlete. I was like,
I know.
I should have
Well, we
named
weren't
this thing
tiny.
something else, like,
Cute.
Shapely Girl Triathlete or something like that, But so that's what I was. Karen's got all the publication experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I was a reporter for the 4-Star Telegram.
What's the name of the book that you wrote together?
Oh, it's called The Poison of Life.
Why
Why don't you do the synopsis? You're a little stronger at this than I am.
You keep saying that, but that
I know, but you will.
Okay, it's because you're German. I'll do what you say.
Oh my gosh.
The Poison of Life is, as I said, a contemporization and retelling of the Jane Eyre story. The quote is a Brontë quote where if you're familiar with the story, the Mr. Rochester character tells Jane that regret is the poison of life. And so we took that novel and we contemporized it and set it in New Orleans and Chicago. And we have many nods. There are many literary nods. You made a Shakespearean reference earlier. There's actually a novel within the novel in our story. Our Mr. Rochester character is a erotic female vampire novelist, sort of based on Anne Rice, because we both love the Anne Rice books. And so she's got writer's block, and so they hire a nanny to care for the child. And as they fall in love, she becomes unblocked, so she writes 4 chapters of a vampire book that are within the novel. So, we stuck pretty close to the plot. I mean, except that our crazy wife is not locked in the attic. She's
Well, yeah, you can't really do that
Can't lock people in the attic
If you're gonna-
anymore.
Yeah,
Just-
unless
that's
you're a
what you
serial
think
killer,
of.
that's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
Did you ever read The Yellow Wallpaper? Did you read that while you were in college? Essentially, it was a woman who gave birth and had no affectional attachment
No
to
motherly
her.
attachment.
Exactly. And so they made her convalesce because they figured, eventually she'd be able to make the connection, and they left her in an attic, and she started becoming obsessed with the wallpaper that's in the room. And she slowly loses her mind. But I went to Mount Holyoke, so
It's a comedy?
It's a comedy. It's
Yeah.
very light. It's very upbeat. But it's one of those things that you would have like in a feminist literature
Yeah,
class,
sure,
that kind of
yeah.
thing.
Right.
I'm gonna kind of set you up, and then you can go with it. All right. I know because you have writing spouses, right? Sometimes it's hard for my spouse to understand that in our writing process, we're laughing and being stupid and goofy, but we're also still writing. Like I'll be reading aloud,
Right, sure.
and then I like to pull the tiger's tail or just say something out of the blue, or if I know like what she's thinking at the time about a particular character, and I'm like, behave, come back on board, sister. And both of our spouses have a hard time understanding that there's a cocktail of productivity and thought, and the humor that we bring into our books is born out of the friendship thing. So,
and it's fundamental to what we do.
Yes.
So question 1 is, how has writing together affected your friendship? And question 2, how has it affected the chemistry of the two of you with your spouses, and then kind of together?
Yeah, I think I love the way that you described that as a cocktail of creativity. I think that there can be the perception sometimes that we're just having fun wine shenanigans and making silly videos and stuff like that. But it helps us to be more productive. I think that this whole experience, for us in particular, it's brought us closer together for sure. I mean, we were friends, but we were friends in a context of a lot of group settings. Before, we didn't really have like a lot of one-on-one time. And this really, I think, has deepened our friendship quite a bit.
Absolutely.
I think that it has encouraged very many interesting conversations between our spouses. Sarah and James do discuss our writing shenanigans and what we are writing about and the contents of our novel and what they think about it. And I think that it's brought the 4 of us closer together.
Right. Karen and Sarah are the backup parents to my daughter, so if my husband and I get hit by a bus, that's
backup moms.
That's who Claire chose. So we already have that. So we're almost like we've got like a family unit anyway.
Right.
And it just enhanced that. But there was a time when we went down to New Orleans, and Karen and I were down there for 4 days, I guess, before Sarah came down to Victoria. And we wrote. I mean, we got up in the morning and we wrote for 4 to 5 hours, and then we looked for color. We go around and just try to put your description
Right.
true description in this, so that people in New Orleans are like, that's bull, you know.
Right.
But when they got there was this almost an antagonism. Like, we had a schedule, and our schedule was we'd do 4 hours to 5 hours, and then we wander around. And
early in the morning.
Yeah, we're getting texts.
Like, wait till noon to write.
When
It doesn't matter if we're out until 3 a.m. We're going to write at like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And
right, but we did get a little pull, like, when are y'all going to be done? But they're both
not too much. They're both pretty good.
They're both such. Oh, you're just worried that she's going to watch this. They're both such good big fans of the book that they've been pretty supportive. I don't think, unless Sarah's one of my best friends, so I don't think she doesn't have any antagonism towards the whole writing widow thing.
Oh,
she thinks it's kind of cool.
No. Yeah, for the most part, Sarah's been very supportive. There's every once in a blue moon, she might be like, you've worked X amount of hours at work this week, and every night you've come home and you've been messing with this stuff on your laptop. At some point, it would be nice to have dinner together. But that's rare. Usually she's pretty good about it.
And my husband's an artist and a musician, so he's a visual artist. He got his degree in fine arts from the University of Texas. He's a painter. And he's also a guitar player who's traveled all over the country. So to him, if you're doing something creative, for me to get to do something creative, because he and my daughter are the creative ones, he just thinks that's a blessing. I mean, he's kind of like, go right with Karen. It's fine, go.
I know. Even Claire, you're obviously your daughter, but Claire is also very excited about it. She told me that she's very pleased that James has his painting and his guitar, and she has her singing. Now you have your writing too.
It's good to know.
So I have two final questions. I'll tell you both, and you can answer them. The first thing is, what would you like to tell to a new and aspiring author, especially those considering writing as a part of a team? And then you can direct your comments to your readers and what you'd like to say to them, and then we'll close out the interview.
Okay. Me?
You can go. There you go.
Okay. All right. I think that you got to find the right person. I've tried to explain this to several people, and I like to equate it to the workout buddy. Okay. You got to find the right workout buddy who will hold you accountable, but will also cut you slack when you've had a bad day. He will keep you motivated and be your cheerleader, and that's really hard to find. There has to be the right dynamic there, and also where you feel like both partners are contributing equal amounts, right? You can't have like one that's really doing all the heavy lifting and the other one's just kind of sort of hanging out. So that's really hard to find. A lot of good discussions beforehand about what that might look like is pretty good. And then, yes, there are going to be expectations the first time you sit down, like we had, very high expectations. We were nervous, but don't put too much weight on that. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can find that other person. It's okay to try a few times and have it not work out and keep looking.
I think I would say if you're going to attempt to write with a partner and you choose to try to write with one of your good friends, don't be hurt, angry, disappointed, upset, frustrated, jealous if it doesn't work out between the two of you, but it does work out between your friend and somebody else. Because writing is such a fluid dynamic that just because you have a good natural interpersonal relationship doesn't mean that your styles will necessarily be the same. And I do know that Caren at one point attempted to write with one of her very best friends, long-term friends, and it didn't work out. Right. And at first she was sort of surprised that we could write together, and she actually ended up editing our book, and she was fantastic. But once she even read it, she was like, yeah, you guys need to be writing together. Right. So don't be disappointed if it doesn't work out. There's somebody, if you want to write with a partner, you'll find them. It may be the person you never suspected that you would write with. But yeah.
I mean, it is kind of like trying to move in with your best friend in college. Yeah. That can go south or that can be awesome. Right. They could be the most awful roommate ever, but still your best friend. And that has happened to just about everybody that I know.
And speak to your fans, like a little hello.
Okay. Hello to our fans. We love you guys, and we hope that you will enjoy the novel and grow to love the characters as much as we love them, and know that we've already started the second novel, and don't hate us after the first chapter.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for checking us out to begin with. I think that we have made something that is a little bit unusual and a little bit different. I like to think that it can be flippant and sarcastic and fun, but also very moving and heartwarming. And I hope you enjoy it a lot.
Thank you for the interview.
It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and let's enjoy the rest of our time in the DC area at GCLS conference.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.